Welcome back. We're here to talk about Sunday's Premier League match between Liverpool and Swansea. Pascal, there's only one place to start. Liverpool, fantastic performance against Man City last time out.
It really was. Klopp's had some good performances in his 8 games in charge, especially the one at Stamford Bridge when they beat Chelsea 3-1. But that one against City, the best by a long way. Really just supreme against the team that was the league leaders going into that game. I think they had won 5 in a row in all competitions at the Etihad going into that game. So they'd been in excellent form in front of their own fans, top of the table. And for Liverpool to play the way they did, 4-1 winners by the end, a tremendous display. And you have to say the way they started, I think City, they should have expected Liverpool to press high like they did. It's been a feature of their play under Klopp, but it almost panicked City. They made defensive mistakes. Obviously gifted the first goal with a Mangalar's own goal. He couldn't get his feet sorted, and a comical own goal there. But even after that, Liverpool really, you thought maybe once they got that early goal, they might have sat back a bit. The complete opposite. They kept pushing forward. They could smell blood against City there, and the likes of Coutinho, Firmino, they really did play excellently. Obviously, both of those on the score sheet. Before half-time, excellent goals again. The link-up play between the midfield and those forwards was superb. You thought maybe Aguero getting that goal just before half-time was a really good finish from there. Nothing Mignolet could do about that, you have to say. But you thought maybe that might give City a lift going into half-time and into the second half. But Liverpool, they weren't as electric as they were in the first half in the second half, but they didn't concede again, and then obviously finished them off with that excellent skirtle finish inside the area. So a tremendous display from them. They're still probably not where they want to be in the table, but on the whole, for them to put in a performance like that, away at Man City, who, like I say, were the league leaders, just really fabulous.
Yeah, I think probably the biggest compliment you can pay them is that it bore the hallmarks of a couple of seasons ago when they came so close to winning the title and they looked unstoppable at times, the likes of Suarez, Sturridge, Sterling, fantastic connection up front. And Firmino and Coutinho, some of the football they were playing, it was every bit as good as that when Liverpool came so close to the title. It was, for me, certainly the best performance since those days. Just the way they blew Man City away in the opening half hour, which was obviously what they did in that season when they were beaten. You think back to that Arsenal game where they blew Arsenal away inside the opening stage. It was more the same in this one, 3-0 up inside 32 minutes. The game pretty much dead and buried then, although as you mentioned, when Aguero got the goal back, there might have been a few nervous Liverpool fans about, but it was such a good performance. And the 4-1 scoreline in the end probably flattered it, Man City, if anything. Liverpool could have had 7 or 8, and there's no exaggeration because they had some fantastic chances. Joe Hart had to make 3 or 4 one-on-one saves, big saves to keep it somewhat respectable for Man City. It was a fantastic performance from Liverpool. Just, as you mentioned, they're probably not where they want to be in the table, 9th in the league still, but that performance will give them so much belief that they can push on for the top 4 now, because it had been fairly uninspiring in some games under Jurgen Klopp, with the exception of that Chelsea victory 3-1 at Stamford Bridge. He hadn't made the real impact that people thought he might make, but that was really the performance everyone was waiting for under Klopp, and if they can replicate that a few more times, then certainly they'll fancy their chance of getting the top 4 place, because while it is a competitive top 4 race at the moment, the likes of Tottenham in there, Everton improving, Chelsea you probably expect to come back in there. No one's really taken charge of the Premier League this season, which is shown by Leicester being top of the table, so they really fancy their chance of getting themselves in the mix if they can improve their performances.
Absolutely, I think it's going to be a really exciting race, not only for the top 4 but the title as well. Like you mentioned all those teams there, we've already said that Spurs might be dark horses for the title, but if Spurs are, then I think probably Liverpool have to be as well if they're going to play, if they're going to put in performances like they did against City last week. The one thing I'd say about those 2 games we've talked about for Liverpool, the Chelsea and the City wins, both away from home, I think Klopp really needs that sort of electric performance at Anfield. They haven't really had that under Klopp yet at home. There's been a couple of stodgy results. Obviously, the last time out against at Anfield, they lost to Palace there, so that was disappointing. In the Premier League this season, they only won 2 of their 6 home league games, drawing 2, losing 2 as well. So that's where they need to improve. You'd probably say that. I mean, we talked about Coutinho, how well he played at the Etihad there, but he did, come off with a little niggle. The reports are that it's not as bad as first feed. They've got Bordeaux in the Europa League on Thursday. He's probably going to sit that one out in the hope of playing in this one. And if he can come back, that'd be a boost. They've got Henderson. He's coming back in about sort of 2 weeks' time. So once he's back, that offers them, a bit more dynamism sort of in that defensive midfield place. He can go box to box. Henderson, he's really good at that. And then those players coming back, Sturridge and Benteke both fit now, and then the January transfer window, obviously just about a month away now. Who's Klopp going to sign? He's going to go for any of his old Dortmund players, I'm sure. Marco Reus would be the one that all the Liverpool fans want to see. He's a tremendous forward, Marco Reus, and anyone of that sort of calibre would be a brilliant signing. But even then, Klopp, he's got a lot of connections there in Germany. There's some quality players there that he could maybe sign, and with the squad, more of the squad fully fit now, potentially new signings coming in, it's looking pretty good for the Reds.
And it's looking pretty good heading into this weekend as well, because they're coming up against a Swansea side really struggling for form at the moment. That 2-2 against Bournemouth, on paper not the best result, but the way the match transpired, probably a decent result in the end. They found themselves 2 goals behind fairly early on, but hit back straight away through Andre Ayew's goal, and then Shelvey obviously got the penalty to level things up. after maybe coming back from 2 goals down, they might fancy their chance of pushing on and getting a victory, but that never materialised in the end. And to be honest, they were a little fortunate to get away with a point. Bournemouth, probably the better side throughout, as they have been for many of their games this season, which they haven't really got what they deserve from. But for Swansea, we're not really sure where it's gone wrong, because we mentioned plenty of times this season they started the season so well, they looked capable of pushing for a top 6 place, but they need to get those wins in the bag. They need to get, even if it's just a few 1-0 wins here and there, maybe if a lucky one, a lucky break if they don't deserve it, they need to get results on the board to get that confidence back, because when they're playing with confidence, they're a very good team. But it's now 1 win in 10 Premier League games, which is not really good enough for the quality they've got throughout their side. Gary Monk, he tried something different this time around with dropping Bafétimbi Gomez to the bench and bringing Eder in, but Eder hasn't really done it so far since coming in. So he's trying new things, but he needs to find a winning formula sooner rather than later if they're to salvage their season, perhaps push for the top half.
Yeah, you mentioned Eder there. That's just, he's got no goal in 13 appearances for Swansea this season. Most of those off the bench, you're granted, but he hasn't really done much. Gomez he hasn't scored in 9 Premier League games after obviously starting really well at the start of the season. You know, it was good to see someone different score. Shelvey got on the score sheet there. He's the only player, not called Gomez, Ayew or Sigurdsson, who's now scored in the Premier League, but then he got booked, so he's now suspended for this game, so he can't play here against his former club, of course, as well. So disappointing there. And you just look at some of the other stats, 5 points. There are only 5 points worse off this season, to be fair, than last season. You think last season was their best ever finish in the Premier League, and the fact they're only 5 points worse off at this stage than they were last season, they can turn it round. And obviously last season was a tremendous effort from them, and even though so they're only 5 points behind, so if they put together a good run, they can get back towards the kind of points total they had last season around the halfway stage. But it just doesn't really feel all that convincing from Swansea at the moment, does it? They need something more. They need goals. I mean, I'm sure they're going to try and sign someone in January, but at the moment it doesn't look that great, because if you're dropping Gomez, Sigurdsson didn't start against Bournemouth either. That's 2 of their biggest players from the start of the season. You wonder why they're not starting. Is there a bit of unrest in the camp? You've got to wonder.
Do you see them ending that poor form here?
No, I don't. Liverpool, I know they've got Bordeaux on Thursday, so they've got a European game in midweek, but that's at home. They haven't really got to travel for that one. So Liverpool, they should have far too much here. Sturridge and Benteke is still to come back into the starting 11 as well. They should have way too much. I'm going to go for the 3-1 win.
Completely agree with that. I think Liverpool, on the back of that, they should be flying on the back of that Man City match. It obviously depends a little bit what happens. Bordeaux, maybe that might stunt their momentum a little bit, but you can't really see them not winning this match. The form both sides are in, so I'm going to agree with 3-1 as well. So we're both going for fairly comfortable Liverpool victories here. Thanks for joining us.